Young Indians who are getting into the world, what is it that you want to tell them?
I think get some more depth. I think it's because of this whole social media content. It's just so much out there that sometimes I think people want shortcuts and people are just scratching the surface.
What would you say to youngsters in small towns who have dreams of being an entrepreneur?
मेहनत तो करनी पड़ेगी.
Right.
Dream big, but then work extremely hard to get the numbers. Because today, whether you're a man or a woman, you get respect when you show results. Get your expertise in that area.
So for the 18-year-old Namita and the Namita now, what's your idea of fun?
Bollywood movies, Bollywood movies.
If we had Let's Enterprise 20 years back, you think you would have joined?
For sure.
Ooh.
Absolutely. Why not?
Namita and I have known each other since we were 18.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
I have been able to...
That's 29 years. Damn, 29 years. That's a long time. You're one of my oldest friends, Aditya.
That is so crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
And I think, for me, I've had the privilege of seeing Namita as a super sincere CA student and then becoming a businesswoman and then now celebrity. But I think now also someone who is shaping the entrepreneurial and educational ecosystem in our country. Namita, welcome to this first episode of my show called Spirit of Enterprise. And while I don't really need to introduce Namita, but Namita, you're a CA and you did your MBA at the Fuqua School of Business at Duke University. And then you worked in the US for 6 years before coming back to your family business as a CFO. Mm-hmm. And today you are the executive director in the business. But along the way, Namita, you have also set up an entrepreneurs academy, the Thapar Entrepreneurship Academy, and you have started a YouTube channel called Uncondition Yourself, and you've been a shark, obviously, in Shark Tank India, and you have also written this very interesting book called Dolphins and Sharks,
Oh God,
which I want to talk about a little later. But I think for me, Namita, the really important thing is, and I don't know how this is going to look good for your TRP or how this is going to sound in this, this
Hey, you know what?
this dog-eat-dog world of business.
It is what it is.
But what I think for me, what is important is that Namita is a good person.
Oh my God, that's so sweet.
And I think, Namita, I've, in the last 11 years, through Let's Enterprise, I've spoken to at least 800 parents, one-to-one. And, every parent tells me that I just want 3 things for my kid. I want them to be able to stand on their own feet. I want them to be happy in whatever they do.
Yeah.
And I want them to be a good person.
Yeah.
So I want to begin, Namita, by asking you, what does this mean, being a good person? And do you think it's important in this cutthroat business world? What is this good person?
I think it's very important. It's the foundation on which everything else is built. And business is a part of your life, right? At the end of the day, you sleep at night. And it's very important to sleep with peace in your heart and a big smile on my face. I mean, to me, if I'm able to sleep a good night's sleep with peace in my heart and a big smile, that is my report card. And that only comes if you know that you're a kind person and you've wished people well and you've never been malicious or meant harm for anybody. So, in school, they teach you a lot of techniques and math and formula, but the biggest school is a school of life, right? And in that, you got to ace it. And the only way you can ace it is just by being a kind person. And it's not that difficult. So why not?
Wow. And I've seen you, I know that you care about not just business, but about the country, about society. You care about your friends. But is it possible to be a good person and to be successful?
I don't know. I think as per external parameters, I'm successful. And I think I'm a kind person too.
True.
So maybe...
Can't argue with that.
Maybe there are... and I do think I have met a lot of people in my life. I've been very lucky to meet a lot of people in my life who are very successful and are exemplary human beings. So given my statistics, and I'm a CA, so I'm a numbers nerd. My numbers and my case studies show me that business world as well as an outside world, there are a lot of superstars who are both. You're one of them. So I think it's possible to be both.
Thank you for saying that. And, I think it's such an important message to pass on to the youth today that, you don't just have to be that cutthroat person. Of course, you got to be sharp. So, Namita, Emcure Pharmaceuticals is a 6,700 crore pharmaceutical company. But it all started, I know, in a shop somewhere in Sadashiv Pet or Tell us some stories from your childhood that you heard from your father, from your grandparents, from your mother. Tell us some stories that you have seen shaping this business.
There's stories of my uncle, my grandfather taking their little scooter at 2 a.m. at night because a patient needed that injection. That taught me customer service, customer love at a very young age. There are stories of me sitting with my grandfather with that sponge and counting notes and, hisab karne ka. That showed me the importance of keeping your accounts right. There's stories of, my father going on the shop floor every single day, knowing the names of everyone and little things about them and singing with them and just being so loving to them. And that taught me the basics of HR. There's stories at the dinner table where, Humayun Dhanrajgir, who was a CEO, he's no more, unfortunately, he used to be the chairman of our board. My father's first contract manufacturing, when he started his company, was from Glaxo. And Mr. Humayun Dhanrajgir was like this very suave Amitabh Bachchan, 6'3", extremely handsome, extremely intelligent, extremely kind man who would come home. And I would just sit at the table listening to him. And those were my early lessons in business development and alliances. So, for me, I've been very lucky that, yes, the company has scaled, but I have seen stories from 0 to 1 at the dinner table by watching my grandfather, my father, and not to forget my grandmother and mother, because, though they were homemakers, they were extremely important.
Right.
And they made a lot of sacrifices that have made their husband successful.
And they're kind of the ecosystem, right, on the top of which these people go out and do these crazy things.
They discount the housewives, but we must never discount their role because they are a very large part of Emcure success story as well.
It's so interesting. I remember my mother saying that my grandmother used to have... My grandfather ran a 600-person company and he would walk in anytime unannounced with 10 people for lunch. And she had to be equipped. So
it's a very Gujju Maru thing, they just show up and they expect the women to have food ready for 15 people. So I remember those days.
And Namita, talking about Gujju Maru, growing up in a Gujju business home, I know, like being a Marwadi myself, you have these stories and you're talking about business and hiring and firing and biaj at the dining table. And business families have a certain way of grooming their youngsters, right? I mean, this is our real MBA. So anything that you remember that your parents did that kind of groomed you in some way?
I think teaching the value of money. We never had an entitled upbringing, though we were always, relatively had good times as well. I remember those calls that my grandfather would make to his daughter in America, and he would have a stopwatch. He'd be like, "Arey, bahut paisa the gaya," Now stop. Wow. So we'd be in the middle of a sentence and he'd be like, "Oh, 3 minutes are done. Hang up the phone."
Damn.
So, or going to Ahmedabad, and back in the day, the water used to be salty. So I couldn't drink the water there, and I'd be like, "Hey, gold spot de do, ek thumbs up de do." Like, I can't drink the water, then I'd be so thirsty. I'd be like, "Tene khabar che kitlu mongo hai, gold spot and thumbs up." You have to have the value of money.
Crazy.
So I think very early on, they taught us frugality, cost cutting, in a chartered accountant's language. And I think those were some very nice lessons. So now, even though we may have a lot more, we have gratitude.
Oh my God,
and I think that gratitude comes from that kind of an upbringing.
Beautiful.
So we had a very middle class, lower middle class upbringing, and I'm very grateful for that because it's given me a lot of gratitude when I buy that expensive, like Aman jokes, 20 lakh ke joote. By the way, I've never worn 20 lakh shoes, but when he jokes about my designer shoes or something, today when I buy it, I say a silent prayer.
Beautiful, yeah. It's amazing how these things really seep into and they become a part of who you are.
Yeah.
Wow. So, Namita, you came back to India, right? After doing your MBA at a great school and working in the US. And you write in your book that, you believe that entrepreneurship democratizes our country, our economy. So I sense a touch of patriotism. I sense a touch of, this desire to make a difference and contribute. Would love to hear a little bit more about that, and would love to hear, do you think that that's a feeling that we should inspire in our youth?
I don't know if you remember, but I'll tell you one of my lovely memories I have with you. I was I think I was 21, and I think you're a year older than me. You were 22, and I had just joined, both of us had joined together, Road Track Riverside. You remember those days?
I remember you walking in with that big pile of books.
Yeah, and the whole intent was that I wanted to do something. Like I was always very, very, I wanted to be a giver. And I called you one day and said, Aditya, you play the guitar really well. And there's this old age home. And let us just go and spend time with the women there.
Oh,
you remember that?
I totally remember that.
And it was just you and me.
Yeah.
And I think there was Shabnam.
Shabnam.
Right? 3 of us.
Yes.
And we just went there.
Yeah.
And we just spent a couple of hours with the women there. And you were playing your guitar. We were clapping. We were going and chatting with each of the women there. And we just spent 2 hours.
It was an experience. I mean, who does that at 18?
It was
it
beautiful,
wow.
right? You remember that.
I totally remember
I think you're a giver at heart too. And not a little bit. I think there's a whole lot of patriotism. I'm a very proud Indian. And one of the biggest reasons I came back is I definitely felt that I want to do something for India, because when I was in the US for 8 years, I heard so much bad mouthing about our country, about everything.
Yeah,
and I felt like everybody is bad mouthing.
It pains, yeah.
How are things going to change, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they were wrong, because a lot of things they were quoting were facts. Let's not have an ostrich mentality. True. But at the same time, like Gandhiji said, be the change that you want to be.
Absolutely.
You have to do things in your own little way. And if each one of us does small things in our own little way, it makes a big difference. So I'm a very big patriot by heart. And I think my journey has just begun. I'm 47 years young. And hopefully the next 20 years, I can do a lot more for the country.
Woohoo!
And by the way, what I love the most about Shark Tank is the kind of founders they come from villages and small towns that I've never even heard of. So my geography बहुत सुधर गई है. But there are places I've not heard of that they come from. And the way they build businesses with nothing.
Crazy.
And the passion in their eyes. I mean, Aditya.
That fire and the hunger.
I keep going back. Like Vic keeps asking me, like, ho gaya abhi? I said, no, I'm going to do the next season. And I think I will continue doing it till I keep meeting these amazing people from these little towns with all that drive and that passion. So India has a bright future.
Thank you for saying that. And really, I mean, that fire, that hunger, and as entrepreneurs, there's that potential to make that change and to make that difference. Yeah. So, Namita, yes, India has a bright future, and we are looking at possibly being a $7 trillion economy by 2030. This is a great period for India. So, young Indians who are getting into the world, what is it that you want to tell them? Because somewhere I feel that it's a window of opportunity. What's your perspective, and what would you tell young Indians about this?
I think get some more depth. I think it's because of this whole social media content. It's just so much out there that sometimes I think people want shortcuts and people are just scratching the surface. Everything is quick. Aajkal Zepto ne bhi 10-minute delivery kar diye. Everything is like fast. And I've been through that phase too, but I think it's very important to get depth.
Right.
When I did my CA or you did your engineering, we studied those tax laws, or you studied those basics, and we put in a lot of effort to get expertise.
Strong foundations.
Yeah, expertise and depth.
Interesting.
So my number one thing to youth is, don't just skim the surface.
Right.
This is the world, the content.
Don't learn from 30-second reels.
Yeah, don't just be superficial. It's good, even I learned from 30-second reels, but balance. Get a lot of depth. Whatever area you pick something that you're passionate about. I mean, Aditya, I truly love what I do. Right. I don't like Sundays. I don't like vacations because I love my job, right?
Interesting.
So pick something that you love doing. That is number one. And secondly, whatever it is that you've picked, get tremendous depth in it.
Beautiful.
Don't just scratch the surface.
Get depth.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Get your expertise in that area. Absolutely.
Drill deep. The deeper you go, the higher you can rise.
Yeah.
Namita, you spoke about small towns, and I believe it too. I see it. Some of our students at Let's Enterprise coming from small towns. You see a different kind of a hunger and fire in them. What would you say to youngsters in small towns who have dreams of being an entrepreneur? How can they get the exposure and the confidence that big city kids have?
I think confidence comes from work experience. So when I went abroad for my MBA, after my MBA, when I worked there, I think the work experience I got there for a good, 6 years which was not in my father's company. The
Mm.
way they grilled me,
Right.
that taught me more than my CA and my MBA. So I think,
घसना पड़ा.
yeah, वो थोड़ा रगड़ना पड़ता है. So I think that working in a big city,
Brilliant.
really rolling up your sleeves and doing that work,
Right.
work experience, and that too in a company, an area that you're passionate about, will give you tremendous experience. And that's what you're all about. The internship model in
Absolutely.
your program is all about rolling up your sleeves and doing the work.
Absolutely.
And I think whether it's a small town, big town, whatever, work experience, internships that you're harping on, that's your USP.
Exactly.
Is what is going to really, separate the good from the excellent.
Brilliant. I love what you said. Confidence comes from work experience.
Yeah.
Getting out there
Yeah.
and ghasoing.
Yeah.
Lovely.
मेहनत तो करनी पड़ेगी.
मेहनत तो करनी पड़ेगी. And that's where the confidence comes from.
Yeah.
I know, Namita, that you're a big you're a big one for women in entrepreneurship and in business. And as I was talking to my colleagues, who is a role model for women entrepreneurs or business? Not too many names come to your mind. So, what would you say to young girls and their families who dream of entrepreneurship? What are a couple of things that you'd like to tell them?
I think firstly, dream big, and secondly, numbers. Your numbers have to come.
Right.
So dream big, but then work extremely hard to get the numbers. Because today, whether you're a man or a woman, you get respect when you show results.
Brilliant.
So the two R's, the
Brilliant.
respect is correlated to the results.
Mm.
And so, man or woman, dream big, get the results, and baki sab to theek hai.
Crazy. I love that, numbers. I remember when I came to you and
Very
spoke
much
about...
a numbers person.
I remember when I came to you and spoke about what we're doing with Let's Enterprise and the working BBA.
Yeah.
And you told me this, let's make the numbers happen.
Yeah.
Right?
It's all about that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Namita, nowadays, discipline has become a bad word. And I know, even when you come home for a dinner, you're one of the people who come spot on time. The people arrive 45 minutes after that. What would you want to speak to the Gen Z in terms of discipline? And how do we look at discipline in a new way, maybe?
You spoke about punctuality, right? So
Right.
I'm never late. I'm always 5 minutes early. God forbid, like today I was in a 6-hour marathon meeting, so I was 5 minutes late. The first thing I do is apologize. I think people lack basic manners. I have seen myself in workshops where somebody has walked in half an hour late and they just lowered in and sit down. They won't even apologize. So for me, that's basic manners are very important. Call it discipline, but you have to have a certain work ethic.
Right.
Being on time. Just sort of like today in my meeting, I was there for, I think it was almost a 5.5 hour meeting. I never take my phone with me in meetings.
Oh.
Because that's also a form of respect.
Amazing.
Right? Because if you're taking your phone in the meeting, you will slip.
Yeah.
At some point, you will want to check that WhatsApp.
Yeah.
At some point, you'll want to check that Insta. You'll get distracted. And that's not fair to the person who's leading the meeting. So to me, discipline means respecting people, whether it's reaching on time, whether it's not carrying a phone to meetings. I'm also very disciplined when it comes to my lifestyle. Like, I don't party. I've done it. And then I got
But you're the
sick
life of the
it.
party.
The one party that I go to, maybe, because I'm very animated, like you say, but I've done the whole party scene.
Yeah.
But now I don't do it anymore. I sleep by 10:30. I wake up by 6:30. I'm
Wow.
very disciplined. So I think if you have discipline in your life, you can put your best version forward.
Brilliant.
As a business leader, as a mother, as a friend, you can give the world your best version if you're disciplined.
Wow. I love the word you used, work ethic.
Yeah.
And I think business schools, undergrad schools should be talking about work ethic and bringing that.
On basic manners.
Absolutely.
I mean, you walk into a meeting late and you don't apologize. I mean, that's rude.
And
Or
speaking-
somebody sends you a WhatsApp and you don't reply. I mean, to me, these are basic manners.
Absolutely.
You have
Absolutely.
to reply if someone messages you or asks you a question. You have to say sorry if you walk into a meeting. These are things that are non-negotiable.
Really? And it's become like a dumb
Yeah.
thing, having a phone lying around.
Yeah.
And speaking of phones, I've seen, even if we are in a social gathering, I've seen you will almost every time make time to have like a 10-minute conversation with someone or the other, you'll sit in the corner and have a one-to-one convo. And I just want to touch on that because, nowadays we are having relationships on texts,
Yeah.
not just
You
text.
want to know the trigger for that? I'll tell
Would
you a
love to.
story that I've not really told in public, but if you really keep your eyes open, you learn from everything, every experience. So someone I considered a friend didn't invite me to her milestone birthday. And invited the whole world in Pune, out of Pune also, and didn't invite me. And it really hurt, Like, what happened? Why wasn't I invited? And I felt really bad about it.
I can imagine.
Then that kind of made me realize the superficiality. I started looking at parties in a different light. I would go to parties and I would see that, everybody is just flitting, having 2-minute conversation, then to the next one, 2-minute conversation, then to the next one, and then even when they're talking to you, they're not really listening to you. They're looking at, okay, who is the next person I'm going to go and say hello to? So it became a numbers game. That, एक party में, पुणे के party में तो 100 लोग होते हैं. एक party में कितने hit rate होगा मेरा? 30%, 50%, 50%. And I think that just, what happened to me about not being invited, just gave me a reset about, since that day, I cut down on my socializing completely. And the few parties that I go to, I say I'll talk to 2, max 3 people. I will sit down with them. I will have a 15-minute chat. I will ask them questions about their children, their dogs, what matters to them. And I will give depth and that respect. So there's always one experience in your life that gives you a mental reset about some fundas.
Yeah.
And so though that time I felt very hurt, now I look at that experience as a game changer that made me a better version of myself. And I thank that person for not inviting me.
Beautiful. And I think that's why people who know you love you so much.
Oh God. Okay.
And you can tell me the name of that person who didn't invite you later.
No, I will not. Sometimes, I know I have no filter, but sometimes having a filter is a good thing.
So you're saying business may play the numbers game, in personal relationships, it's not about numbers.
Business में आप आपका sales lao, but for everything else, I have a big placard where I sit in my office which says less is more.
Beautiful, beautiful. I have a few questions which are like short questions, okay? And then I have a few rapid fire questions, okay? So, before I go into the short questions, we live in a world of where looks are so important, right? And how we show up. And I've seen you evolve in your journey of how you present yourself, right from those CA days, Namita. And oh my God, what a change, right?
You have seen me in my nerdy days, and you describe it in a lot of detail at our social parties. So
I'm not doing that
feel free, you can do it.
But Namita, tell us, power dressing, the way you show up, how important is that? And how can young people, no matter what resources or background they come from, how can they kind of game up in that? Can you give us a few tips?
I think power dressing is very important. I keep using this phrase of being the best version of yourself. So even looks, why not be the best version of yourself? So yes, I take a lot of care of myself in terms of self-care, whether it is regular facials, my workout, my massages, all of that, my shopping, all of that. I give it time because I think that's important, how you present yourself. So there's nothing superficial, nothing wrong about it. And, there's so much content on Instagram now. You can just scroll and get so many ideas where you don't need a stylist or somebody to tell you. You can just figure things out on social media. There's a lot out there.
Right.
But at the same time, I'd like to say that your soul shines on your face.
Beautiful.
You can have the most expensive clothes and the most expensive stylist, but inside, if you're not at peace and happy and not a good person, you won't have that vibe of universal love that attracts people to you. And to me, that is beautiful. So, I catch on to people's energy. So it's not just the physical appearance, but if somebody also has a very nice energy about them, I want to go sit with them and talk to them.
Wow.
So while physical is important, don't forget the inner energy that makes you glow outside. And also don't become so obsessed with it. Like, for example, I know that a lot of people watch my podcast, and I don't do too many other than for friends, right? And I told you last night I had this massive allergy all over my face. It's still there. And I wanted to cancel, saying that, but how can I have allergy all over my face? It's not going to make me look good and I'm going to look bad on this podcast. But then that's where the work ethic comes in.
Absolutely.
Once you've made a commitment, don't let the physical appearance overpower your work ethic.
That is so powerful.
So I think today what happened, and you immediately noticed my allergy and told me, Namita, what's happened, right? So I think that is where, yes, physical is important, but not to the point where you will not keep a commitment to a good friend because you let the physical overpower your work ethic. So I think that's a good
example.
example.
Thank you so much for that. And,
Of course.
yeah, and so you're saying the surface level is great,
Yeah.
but let's not forget the results. Let's not forget the real stuff.
And keep a calm mind, because very often when I've not been calm and I've been stressed and anxious, I've done the stupidest thing. I've been irritable and snappy with people. I have just done things that are not me.
Right.
So also keeping your head calm and having zones of silence in a day where you're just by yourself to hit again that reset button is very important.
Yeah.
To Zen.
That was beautiful.
But you see my mad side too. I have a Zen side.
Dude,
but
hello.
You have seen
there's a mad side happening right now also.
Side too, so.
Actually, Namita, one thing which I really connect with you on, and it hit me when I picked up this book of yours, is this duality.
Yeah, I'm a bundle of
the monk and the monkey, the serious and the fun, the dolphin and the shark, the empathetic side and the business side.
I can be aggressive.
And I think it's so powerful, this duality. And I think that's really where our growth and evolution comes from. And I connect with you on that because, my Instagram handle is Playful CEO.
Oh, that's nice.
Because I feel play is so important, right?
Of course, it's important to have fun.
Yeah. You've seen so many entrepreneurs. You've invested in more than 100 companies. How would you define entrepreneurial mindset?
The ability to pick a problem that's important and relevant and find a creative solution to it. That makes you money. Ultimately, it's the numbers.
Nice. And entrepreneurship is a lonely journey, right? You spoke about inner work. This business of inner work and self-awareness, how important, or what would you say to young people about this? How can they begin their journey of preparing for this?
I've always told this to a lot of people, my friends from the education space, that schools don't do enough on this. They're just, again, teaching you formula techniques, but they're not teaching you life skills. I think Eastern philosophy, whether it's a Jiddu Krishnamurti, and his principles, Eckhart Tolle, a lot of that Eastern philosophy should become part of school curriculums. In fact, in Delhi, I think they have some happiness curriculum in some of the government schools. I've not studied it yet, but I want to. And yoga should become mandatory in all schools. So I think if you start when they're little and introduce yoga and Eastern philosophy and meditation in schools, oh my God, mental health, which has become an epidemic, will be a much smaller issue than it is today.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, because at Let's Enterprise, we are focusing on entrepreneurial mindset and the inner work, self-awareness, and bringing both these together. So thank you so much for bringing that out.
You're the perfect person to do that, because you have a lot of depth and a lot of soul. The CEO or the leader sets the culture. So I'm very happy that, given the kind of person you are, I have no doubt that you will do justice to this part of the curriculum.
If we had Let's Enterprise 20 years back, you think you would have joined?
For sure.
Ooh.
Absolutely. Why not?
Love that. Namita, what's one thing we can add in the education system today to make our youngsters more future ready?
This exactly what I said. Eastern philosophy, yoga, meditation, mandatory. Make it mandatory in schools across India.
Brilliant. What's one piece of advice you would give to a youngster from a non-business family who has dreams about being an entrepreneur or a business person one day?
Just start and dream big and be very passionate about it.
Wow. One thing that I see, almost every youngster has this confusion that what career is right for me? What skill should I gain? What would you suggest to youngsters who are still trying to discover what's right for them?
So Raju Hirani is a very dear friend of mine, and I love his quote from Three Idiots that, Kabil bano और कामयाबी झक मार के पीछे दौड़ेगी. And the whole movie Three Idiots is about following your passion.
Beautiful.
So figure out what you love doing, because what you love doing, you will work hard to become an expert and you will succeed at it.
That is so amazing. My father used to tell me that.
Yeah.
But it's important to hear
it's so
that
simple,
from you.
But people just forget.
And that's why it's important and it's brilliant
External
to hear that coming from you.
validations is what they all focus on, rather than the inner voice that's telling them, hey, but this is what you love doing. Do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, quick rapid fire round.
I thought that was a rapid fire.
No. The rapid fire is here. And in the rapid fire, what I would like you to do is answer one from the 18-year-old Namita.
Oh, God.
And one from the Namita now.
My God. Okay.
So in just 2-3 words or less, right?
Yeah.
So the first question is, what's your idea of fun? So for the 18-year-old Namita and the Namita now, what's your idea of fun?
Bollywood movies, Bollywood movies. That hasn't changed.
I hope that's not going to happen for all my questions.
I doubt it because there's a big difference.
Okay. So, what's your idea of the perfect career?
Teacher, business leader.
Wow. Teacher was when you were 18.
Yeah.
And business leader now.
Yeah.
How do you define cool?
When I was 18, it was probably Sushmita Sen. At 48, cool is more nerdy. Yeah, the nerdier you are, I think that's cooler because then you are unique and you're authentic, and authenticity is a hallmark of courage.
So you've become even
I've
nerdier.
become
That's what you're
even
saying.
nerdier, unapologetically so.
All right. How do you deal with criticism?
Cry versus reflect. Reflect and learn, of course.
Wow.
Yeah.
The power of reflection. All right. My last rapid fire question. Success or happiness? What would the 18-year-old say? What does Namita say today?
Jeez, that's where the shark in me comes out. Success is a big part of my happiness. So I'm sorry, but there is a big shark in me. And I have to get those numbers and be damn successful at what I do. And that makes me happy because my work is 80% of my life. I mean, today I may be doing Shark Tank 20 days a year, or I may be doing my academy on a few weekends, but Emcure is my life. That's 80%. And if I don't get those numbers and I don't get that success, I'm not happy.
Love that. I love that clear,
sorry,
raw,
but
Guju, clear cut. I mean, that's what Namita is all
Happiness
about.
Is there, the inner zen is there, but yeah.
And like you say, I mean, that's something that drives you. So thank you for being so straight out, so, all in. And thank you for doing this.
No, and
Namita.
Aditya, you're doing a fabulous job with your academy. So more power to you and keep up the amazing work. I'm very proud of what you and your team are doing.
Thank you so much.
Lovely. Bye.